Hi, I'm Michael Hartman,
I'm Naomi Liu.
And I'm Mike Rizzo, and this is OpsCast,
a podcast for marketing ops pros
and RevOps pros.
Created by the Mo Pros, the #1 community for marketing operations professionals.
Tune in to each episode as we chat with real professionals to help elevate you in your marketing operations career.
Hello, welcome to another episode of OpsCast, brought to you by marketingops.com, powered by the Mo Pros. I'm your host, Michael Hartman, joined today by one co-host, Mike Rizzo.
Hey, everybody.
In chilly Southern California.
in chilly Southern California.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I shouldn't laugh. I acknowledge that other parts of the world, nay, like the US, are actually experiencing things that are very uncomfortable. So it's laughing in jest, right? Certainly if you need support, I'm here to chat with you.
Our guest, who we'll get to in just a minute, and I both live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're kind of, I think, joked about by people who live in, quote, real, cold climates, because they see what we do of like just the threat, right? And things shut down or stores get cleared out. So,
well, I wouldn't want to see what it looks like here in California if that happened.
No kidding. All right. Well, so this is our first episode back after hitting 100 episodes. So, and for our longtime listeners or people who just have had to tolerate me for a while, you're going to know that I'm going to get excited about this topic, which is going to be the importance of having finance knowledge for marketing ops pros. And I would just argue, like anybody who's got aspirations professionally, finance knowledge is important. But so join us to do this and talk about this topic is our guest, Jaime Garza. He is currently the senior manager of marketing operations at SolarWinds. Prior to joining SolarWinds, Jaime has had in-house roles in marketing operations, program management, and even as a founder, he co-founded a company in the real estate media industry. He is also a veteran of the US Army Green Beret and the Texas Army National Guard, where he served in combat and trained other military, if I got that right. Jaime, thanks for your service, first of all, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you for that, Michael and Mike. Awesome to be here, kind of, be part of this stuff here. So thanks for inviting me.
All right. Well, we're going to get into this. This is a topic that I get wound up about. So you'll have to keep us steady.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can keep you steady. I'll get excited about it too, but let's do it.
All right. So people do know, who've listened to a little bit, that I have a strong belief that everyone in ops should really know the basics of finance, and for a number of reasons. But so when this came up, I can't remember if this was from a LinkedIn post or exactly how it kind of came about. But Jaime, before we get into that, why don't we do this? Let's maybe do a little bit about your career journey. I mean, it's one of the things that I think is fascinating about ops folks is there hasn't been a real consistent pattern for how people end up in these roles. So maybe just share with our listeners a brief history of your career and how you ended up in marketing ops and where you are now.
Yeah, it's a good question, and probably similar to people listening and other people out there. It was not kind of like your traditional. I intended to go into operations, and certainly not marketing operations. I would say my career is broken down into two main areas. Obviously, I started off in the military. I was on active duty for about 7 years. That's where I did a bulk of my full time within the military, served there. And when I came out, finished up school, finished up college, so kind of a non-traditional path there. One of my first jobs coming out of that was actually working for the Air Force as a civilian, where I first got into program management, managing large international training programs for some of our foreign partners. Worked with a lot of different countries throughout the Middle East, and somewhere along the routes there, someone kind of put an opportunity for me to kind of transition from the government civilian sector into technology. And that's really what brought me up from San Antonio up here to the DFW area. And I worked for a company called Intuit, which most people will know for like TurboTax, QuickBooks, and those type of things there. And there I led everything around the go-to-market program. And that was kind of my first introduction to kind of marketing operations. I was kind of like the only program manager in the marketing department, and they were kind of like, what do we do with this guy? Other than like, they knew they wanted me to kind of corral this large team and lead our annual go-to-market launch plan, right? So that was my first foray into like marketing operations. That was back 2015. So it was marketing operations was kind of still kind of building itself up as a formal discipline and those type of things there.
So can I interrupt? I'm just, so marketing program management, I'm going to guess that it's not a common thing that people have titles in. And I know I went to like an idea of what I thought it was, but let me see if I'm right. So I think based on what you described, you're talking about like less about the technical piece, but really helping to coordinate all the different parts of the marketing organization on getting stuff to market, right? So like both the planning and execution, is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, exactly. Because the offering we had there, well, it was a tax offering. It was a tax offering for CPAs primarily, so it's not very popular to the everyday person. Yes, it was everything from really traditional program management, right? Of, assemble the team, define the scope, lead the project from inception to completion. So every year since, in the US, the tax deadline's April 15th. Come April 16th, we would reset everything. And when I mean everything, we would reset everything. Everything from the website, the messaging, our campaigns, our emails, our pricing structure. So it was very informative because again, the team was very cross-functional. I got to work with, business analytics, business operations, resetting SKUs, discounting, the pricing committee, product management, marketing, messaging strategy, documents across the board. So that was kind of like my introduction. And that's really kind of, I kind of stayed within that realm of like, now when you think of marketing operations and they have different facets and functions of within marketing operations, program management is probably one of my deeper skills within that foray. And when I was there at Intuit, I don't know how it really happened other than like somebody was kind of charged with managing the budget, but not really. It was kind of very loosely like, you just track the budget. And people were not happy kind of like the management of it and how accurate it was. And I said, you know what, just give it to me. I said, just give it to me and I'll just pick it up, right? And that's kind of how I got introduced to managing a budget for a marketing department. So long story short, I go from there, broke out from there, worked on our business, which still exists here in the DFW area. Did that for a bit. And then fast forward, I did a small iteration there at Zillow, again, doing a lot of, program management, almost product management stuff there, but within the marketing department of really understanding marketers' needs and how we would implement or solve problems for them through technology. And then now that led to my role here at SolarWinds, where it's kind of leading the marketing operations department for them on that. So, so currently in this role, my remits are everything marketing budget, which probably consumes a significant amount of my time. Program management. So we lead all the strategic initiatives for marketing. I have a small team of those. And then campaign operations at a very tactical level, from standing up a Salesforce campaign, webcast moderation, etc. Those things there. So that's the long answer to your short question.
No, I love hearing about the journey that everybody goes on. And I think our listeners, there's going to be a lot of folks that identify with that journey and some that are saying, oh, that sounds interesting. We should go explore that. So we always appreciate it. Curious though, on, I don't want to say like, it's not one of my OKRs for the year for marketing ops or anything like that, but I am personally and professionally very curious about how more marketing operations folks that are more in the B2C category can start interacting with our community. Because I think on the B2B side, marketing ops, and I don't know, maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but largely marketing ops was sort of born, it feels like, in this B2B SaaS category and sort of grew up in that. But what I always share with folks, at least when the subject comes up, is B2C marketers have been doing marketing ops a lot longer than we've ever called it that. So it's actually existed for much longer. And so I just wanted to maybe poke at, like, Zillow, I have weird ties into that ecosystem. A good friend of mine, my best friend, he worked at an organization called Realty Track. Now it's Atom Data, I believe. And Zillow would siphon off bits of data from that data, provider to be able to build its database. And so, there's certainly a B2B component for both, I would imagine, Zillow and SolarWinds, but there's also a B2C component, right, where they're trying to reach individuals. Which part did you sit on more or less of, or was it all of it? And then did you notice any distinct differences? And I apologize, it's probably way off track from what we were going to talk about today.
No, it's all good.
But I am curious about that piece.
So it's kind of answer your question, which is more specific around Zillow, because SolarWinds is more traditional B2B enterprise ABM type stuff. That, there's a lot of content and people within that section there. Zillow was broken down into, you're kind of right. You're hitting it there. Like we had a B2C and a B2B, right? So if you think about like how they make money, right, it's a platform play, right? And really what they're trying to do is drive users to their app, which everyone probably has it here on their phone, right? And even though you may not be in the market, you're searching somebody's home and just checking out the neighborhood.
I was doing it just like last week because I saw somebody who I was been talking to, they lived in a city in Oregon, random city in Oregon. I didn't know about. I was like, I'm gonna go check out what house prices are there.
Yep. So and then I get that your house is now worth some ridiculous amount of money. It's like that's not true.
Yeah, they're really good at that. So that's kind of like everything that y'all just kind of mentioned there. That's all B2C, right? That's the play, right? The play is to get you to engage and drive unique users to the app, because then the value proposition to them is we have 200 million unique users per month in this app, right? And if you're a realtor, you want to tap into that, and then I'm going to charge you for a lead, right? So the business gets separated at that point. You have to have people focus on driving engagement with the app, through different features and stuff like that. So I worked a bit on that side of that stuff there, and they did, since then they have come out with specific customer offerings as an example, like a mortgage, right, or something like that, where they're trying to go direct to the consumer. But as far as I know, most recently, most of their revenue still does come from realtors, right, who are paying them for leads or to be kind of advertised on their platform. So that's a little bit of a B2B play on that stuff there. But the marketing technology, marketing data there was probably the strongest that I've seen. Like I haven't been everywhere, but they are like fanatical about data. Absolutely. They have deep like data. They have PhDs like in data scientists there, right? Building, algorithms and modeling and propensity models and stuff like that. And they're really sharp at that. So yeah, I don't know if that kind of gives you some insight into that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And were you, and then we can dive back into the finance topic here, but were you supporting more of the B2B side then, or did you have to look at integrating B2C and B2B systems to work together in any way?
No, I was working more on the B2B side, right? So the campaigns kind of targeted towards getting either Mike or Michael here to kind of, like you're getting those notifications, right? Or you get an email and says, hey, the price reduction on 123 Elm Street, right? Stuff like that. Or again, how do you personalize it more? Or there was a lot of work around segmentation and personas, right? Like really trying to dig into that. As you would suspect, they measure how long you linger on a certain part of a listing, right? What kind of captures your attention? What button do you click? And if I change that just slightly, right? That got more engagement. So it was just getting into like every little detail of like, it looks like on your phone, it's just like, oh, you're just scrolling. It looks like a little simple layout, but
there's a lot going on behind the scenes there.
Yeah, there's a lot behind
lots of science happening. That's cool. Very cool. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. So.
I think it's really interesting. I think your background's interesting too. And by the way, I was thinking about this. You're at least the second guest that we've had on who started career military and ended up in marketing ops and did the same thing, right? Military school. And then kind of career. So the thing that really stood out to me that I think was interesting is that, because I think of Intuit as a relatively large company, right? I don't think it's the hugest, but it's definitely not a startup, right? is the amount of exposure you had to so many different parts of the company and the experience of working with all of them. I think a lot of people think you can only get that at an early stage startup, right? And I think so that's if anybody's looking for a way to do that, right? I mean, I think there's program management is probably actually a really good place to be for that. All right, so let's get back into the finance stuff. This is I know this is always fascinating to hear people's story. I'm trying to stop myself from asking more questions right now. All right, so when we were talking before about this episode, you told me that you kind of learned about, or kind of the light switch went on for you, I guess, about how important finance knowledge was when you were going to get your MBA. Can you maybe tell our audience, like, what was it that triggered that, what you learned, maybe through the program or whatever that resonated with you, and why you see it as a really important sort of bit of knowledge for people to have?
Hey everyone, Mike Rizzo here, CEO of MarketingOps.com and co-host of OpsCast. I've got a little secret to share with you, something that's been one of the best kept perks of our community until now. At MarketingOps.com, we've built a hiring program that's changing the game for marketing operations recruitment, and we're finally sharing it with the world. Our community is over 22,000 strong, and within that, we have over 4,400 members who are actively and passively seeking new opportunities. These are seasoned professionals with skills and experience spanning platforms like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and so much more. Plus, we can help you fine-tune your outreach, targeting exactly the right candidates by region, years of experience, seniority level, or even agency experience. But here's the real cherry on top. When you hire through our program, your new team member gets a free membership or a virtual ticket to our annual conference. From day one, they're not just stepping into a new role, they're getting access to the training, networking, and support they need to hit the ground running. So if you're ready to unlock this incredible opportunity, it's time to let this secret out. Visit marketingops.com and find your next star teammate today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep optimizing.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess during that period before I started my MBA and I was working on my personal business, I always had kind of questions about finance, right? Like, how does, you always know that it's important at some level and stuff like that. And to me, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider of, like, what are these people that are successful, financially or whatever in business and stuff like that? What is it that potentially they know that I don't know, right? Like, how are they using money and different components of that stuff there? So that was actually one of the leading motivations for me to go pursue, my additional education through an MBA on those things there. And so through that program, I think one of the better classes I had there, they were all really good, but one that kind of, I reflect on a lot was around the analysis of markets. So in essence, like marketing analytics there, right? And my professor at that point, he brought up the statement there, like, marketing is the new finance, right? And I think the rationale, as I kind of think through that, is if you think of like traditional finance, right, which has always been it's about numbers and it's very data driven. It's about analyzing the numbers, the risk, and how much potential return could I get for a potential investment, right? And then this whole risk reward type thing. And now if you look at marketing and all the data that we collect, right, kind of how we were just talking, whether you're a B2C, B2B, you have all these platforms, you have all this data on a potential customer or prospect and lead. You have all this campaign performance. You're able to measure how much, if you're doing it correctly, how much you're investing to pay for Google Ads, to launch a campaign, to build awareness, and et cetera, right? So now it becomes very similar to like a finance, right? To me, and if you're looking at this, it becomes about data, it becomes about numbers, and you start saying, all right, if I invest $100 here, what is my potential return for this campaign? Or if I invest $100 in campaign B, what's my potential return there? Now, obviously, if you're gonna just let the numbers guide you, then you would just choose the one with the highest return. There is still a little bit of art into that, right? Because you may say, hey, I may be willing to take a slightly lesser return on my money if you have a specific secondary goal. Like brand awareness is always very hard to kind of tease out financially a bit. There is, I think, potentially some models you could look at for that stuff. So that was really kind of, what ties into the marketing is, and you finance it, is very data driven, numbers driven, and it is, where in the past, right, it was maybe, and maybe potentially still exists, marketing is kind of considered a necessary evil or a cost center, but when done right, it's actually a growth department that you can actually look at the numbers and analyze, like, hey, for X amount of dollars, what's my return? And if you get sophisticated enough, there's ways to break these things down into like marketing mix models, right? To really say, all right, I got $1 million for the year. What is the right mix to get me the maximum result dollar-wise on those things? So I think that's very cool, right? Being able to apply that. So when you get asked difficult questions, from leadership or others, like, where should we put this money at? You're like, if you have the data and you're able to analyze it, you can kind of approach it sort of like a financial analyst would, right? So say, hey, well, based on this, like, this is what the number's telling me.
Yeah, I think for me, sort of the thing that triggered it for me was, I couldn't even point to a single event, if you will, was pitching ideas for projects or changes or enhancements to whether process or technology, things like that, in various different roles. And to me, it always like, this is an obvious, like, we should absolutely go do this. And it would get, there'd be a lot of pushback, and sometimes it just never happened, right? And I always struggled with understanding why. And when I finally worked with a finance partner who explained to me, and I knew a little bit about finance from doing previous consulting work with real estate financial services companies and things like that, was when I finally understood that the way that, first off, those people don't know what I know, right? That's the first thing. The second was that the way they think about, especially on the finance people who actually hold the purse strings, right? They're the ones who need to know enough to feel comfortable that you know what you're talking about. And they want to know that you put through some thought into what a reasonable financial model for something would be, even if it is a difficult connection point, right? And so I think, you brought up brand. I've talked to some people recently who are doing some really interesting things about how to tie any kind of spend in marketing back to some sort of impact, ideally on pipeline revenue. But did you experience some of those same kinds of things where you're pitching ideas and they weren't going anywhere, and and then when you kind of got this aha moment about the importance of finance and speaking in that language, did it change?
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely relate. I think that's a good point. I know definitely in my time that into it, where working with other marketers, and there were, like, to your example, trying to get something approved, something net new, right? Whether it's more dollars for additional campaign or more dollars for a technology platform because they think it's going to drive certain results, of like being able to build that case on those things. There is, I think, very common, right? And part of it is, I get it. Marketers are not, maybe not be like formally trained in finance, and you ask them, build me a business case of why we should do this, right? It could be a struggle, right? If you're not if you don't have the skills, or if you don't have a good finance partner to potentially partner with to help you build those things out.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, so you're sounded like you're, even today and historically or in previous roles, have managed budgets for the go-to-market teams, right? What factors sort of go into your mix model around a business case or a proposal for a plan? Beyond, I imagine it's probably software, right? Yeah. And then like number of campaigns and potentially like digital spend and so forth. But does sales fall into that mix? Like if there's a model for like sales reps and BDRs, SDRs type of thing, or?
Yeah,
just curious.
That's a good question. So I'll kind of reference my current situation, or how it works where I'm currently at. I don't account for we measure up to a certain point of where we align with sales of like marketing owns to X point, which is I think very common maybe within the industry. And in essence, once we consider it a marketing qualified lead, right? Like that is success for us, right? Now, sales, it's your job to go get them from an opportunity to close one on that stuff there. So they own that part of the transaction. Now, there's some other stuff that potentially we could do to help them get them to the close, but from a reporting metrics and how we hold ourselves accountable, it's up to kind of that point there on of how many leads did we drive and how many of those turn into like marketing qualified leads, and then we measure, all right, well, that if it's this type of lead for this offering in this region, that equates to X amount of pipe, right? And then so that's a bit of the metrics that I look at with like the CMO and say, hey, how much did we invest here? How much what is a ROAS, right, on this stuff here? How much pipeline are we generating out of these things here? It's not perfect, not to, for all the listeners listening, but well, you got this thing nailed. There's a ton of complexity into it. The data is always moving, right? And being able to really connect the data is always a super challenge of like, have I accounted for all the dollars really going into this campaign? Like, how confident are you on that, right? Because you could have a little bit coming from, say a search ad, and then you could have something coming in from like a LinkedIn social or something like that, and then a little bit over here. And so trying to map all that is tedious, as you would suspect.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
What I think is also what was and remains an interesting learning experience that I had is I've spent most of my career in B2B SaaS, particularly in startups, some scale ups, and the measurement, at least on the venture side, often ends up being the revenue sort of divided by headcount, right? Just broadly in general,
yep.
Right? It doesn't matter what role you have. You've got headcount and spend to be able to support the staff, and then you're looking at your burn rate and your revenue per person, which is fascinating, right? Because it's an extremely simplified way to look at the sort of growth ratio of the business and the burn. And it has very little to do with that idea of like projecting growth and but it's like this barometer that they're using. And I think for me, it's a very sensitive subject because, perhaps maybe for you, Jaime, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but, marketing operations, even in our industry, like annual report, it's still like one of the top KPIs that we measure the success for ourselves in a business is pipeline. And like the reality is that like the function of marketing operations doesn't actually generate pipeline. It's a supporting function, right? And but it's a enabling function. Or enablement, right? That's another really good use of language for it. But it's a bit frustrating, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, because finance is an important topic. We should understand this stuff because we need to know how to communicate across all of the different departments, all the way up to our executives when we're trying to build out dashboards and reports and think how they think and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, there's also this issue of how do I actually report on my team's ability to deliver? And just because I'm capable of looking at these dashboards and creating them for you doesn't mean that our team should necessarily be measured against the amount of pipeline that we're generating, right? That's my thought.
I think that's a great perspective there. Kind of maybe taking a little bit of a step back and looking at those things. There's a couple of different thoughts. I think even since marketing operations, I mean, you'll probably know it way better than I do. I know it's been around for a while, but it's probably grown and be more formalized over the last 15, 20 years, where it's become almost its own discipline within marketing, right? All those things there. And I would think it's maybe, it's still evolving a bit, right? Like, so maybe my role's a little bit unique since I do own the full budget management, like for my department, I do have a little bit like my personal, like, performance and stuff like that. Is one, how well do I manage a budget? And two, am I helping to optimize that budget? And by that, it means like, are we putting it into like the right places? And why I don't generate campaigns, right? I don't know customers deeply enough. I don't do segmentation and personas and like put words on a page, as some people would say. I do kind of own the process to say I need to be able to measure that performance so I can go back and hold those people accountable, right? And to challenge them, right, in a professional way, to say, hey, we invested $50,000 here in this campaign in Q1. We didn't quite get what we needed out of it. Like, I don't think we should do this again, right? I do think that, at least within my role and within my team, that is questions that I ask on that stuff there. Because the other maybe uniqueness here, since I have I'm directly into the senior leader in marketing, she does answer overall for marketing of like how much at that level is marketing performing. And I think one of the ways executives and marketing leaders are going to get assessed is when you think of like what is the role of a marketing department, is to feed the funnel and drive good quality leads to sales so they can close those things, right? And to generate revenue and business for the organization, because that's what a business is about. So she does care about that stuff there. So I kind of help her with that. We do look at some of those other things that you kind of referenced there. Like, I don't know if they're specific to a startup, around like FTEs per total revenue, FTEs per ARR on that stuff there, as we look at those more as a broad landscape of like, how efficient are we with our resources in our organization, right? How are we comparing against a comparable organization of similar size and similar revenue?
Some sort of benchmark.
Yeah, it's a benchmark. So we just went through that like in Q4 of saying like, hey, it's a good gauge, right? Not to say that you need to take action on everything, but it does highlight areas and say, hey, potentially maybe I'm spending too much on my tech stack compared to what like my peers are, right? If I'm over indexed there, like there might be something to investigate there. So we do look at like kind of those benchmark high level kind of things to say like, well, outside of just very specific campaign performance, I look at like resources, headcount, cost of headcount. I look at stuff like how much are we spending on the tech stack? Is it, is there efficiencies? As in last year, and it's going to continue into this year, it's all about operational excellence, right? It's really doing as much as you can with what you need, and not excess on those things there.
Yeah.
So in the startup, it's just like grow, right? Like just like let's just get to growth, show the investors that. I haven't worked in a startup, but I would suspect maybe that's
it's
what
now.
Focused on.
You are spot on. It has typically been that. It is completely changed in the last 2 years because of the economy and just everything. It was growth at all costs, and now it's like get to profitability.
Yeah,
it's very scrutinized now. Reach profitability as fast as humanly possible. Is sort of
interesting. So I think Mike, you brought up something like we probably should, and I know we could do a whole episode just on how to what are some good KPIs, OKRs, measurements for an effective marketing operations team. Because I'm with you. Like, I think I used to want as a leader to take revenue or pipeline as part of it, and I've started moving away because I think there's just too many things outside of your control. In fact, in general, like I when I coach people who are leaders, like what's one of the things I tell them is like, when you're developing your goals and objectives, be cautious about ones where you just don't have a lot of control, because you're setting yourself up for, depending on other people, and unless you absolutely trust them, right? And it doesn't even mean that it's not meant to be a mean thing, right? Just, things come up, right? Somebody leaves, and somebody new comes in, and their priorities are different.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, we probably should do a whole series around KPIs for marketing ops, because it is uniquely different. I love that you have the role that you have, Jaime, because it gives you this like broad stroke kind of look at a couple of facets, which is great for your experience. And I think my hope is, as a community, we keep having this conversation so that we can push organizations in the direction of you're not measuring your product team that's developing new products on their ability to generate revenue. You're certainly not analyzing which features generate the most revenue. And so you're therefore, I mean, you are looking at some of that stuff, right? But like, it's not your basis of decision making for that team's success, right? Their ability to deliver a feature on time that doesn't break, right? Like those are things that matter, right? And I think we need to start fixing how marketing operations is analyzed through the lens of a little bit more of the product kind of. You're managing a go-to-market system, right? Potentially.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one. So you mentioned Jaime's kind of role, and I think what's unique about his role for marketing ops is this sort of full marketing budget responsibility. I think most marketing ops leaders have, if not control over, they have a lot of influence and basically general direction, even if they can't even if they can't just sign a PO or something, right? They can say, this is how I want to spend the X dollars for marketing operations across technology people, consultants, contractors, whatever. I know of a few people I had in some roles where I had full marketing budget responsibility. And in other places where I was, like, I didn't have full budget authority, but I was very much influencing with the CMO how to handle the other budgets, because let's be honest, most marketers are not very good at managing a budget. Right? And I understand why. In a lot of cases, marketing ops is a lot easier to manage because it's fewer transactions, bigger dollar amounts in general, right? Compared to, say, events where you've got a billion different transactions that all could range from big dollar items to low, like, napkins. So, how, I'm just curious, like, I don't know that you have a whole lot of experience of just not managing the full budget, but how do you, based on that, like, how do you think, well, two questions. Like, one, do you think that would be a good use of people who are in marketing ops who also happen to understand enough about finance to help manage a budget across? Do you think that would be a good use of those people as resource for a marketing leader? Second, do you have any sense for how you might behave differently on your decision making with it if your role was everything you have minus that budget management across all marketing? So you have campaign operations, tech stack, whatever it is,
Yeah. So say that last part again, and then.
Do you think if you didn't have visibility and sort of the oversight of the full marketing budget, do you think if you had quote just the marketing ops budget that you were responsible for, do you think you might have done things differently?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's, I get kind of a two-part question there. Like, one, I think the first one was really, do I think like marketing operations, like what kind of role should we play in budgeting or managing a budget and those types, and is it worthwhile for them to take that on? Obviously, I'm biased. I think there's a lot of advantages, right, of being involved in those things there, right? Because having a kind of a seat at the table to see like where are we making those investments and decisions across the board, right? To whether it's a technology platform or it's a partnership with a reseller in a certain region, or you're going to launch into a large campaign somewhere else on those things there. I think having that ability is great. I think it also provides another avenue. Like when you think of like as a marketing operations, right? You think like, oh yeah, you have like data analysts, like we're marketing data analysts. You have like very technical people, or maybe they're managing the Marketo or part of the Salesforce or some other technology platform, so they're a bit technical. Or you could have somebody very technical, very tactical, that is like just, I wouldn't say just, but they're, kind of really just building Salesforce campaigns out, or doing some of the very like tactical stuff to execute campaigns.
Building emails, landing pages.
Yeah. But you got to think of like, what is the career path for somebody like that, right? What if somebody wants to move up further, right? If they only stay within those disciplines or those sub-disciplines, they may bottom out or top out very quickly, and so I think it's a good avenue to also give you some breadth, right? If you kind of think of like, hey, where do I see myself? So if you're in marketing operations and you're currently managing and you're an expert Marketo on that stuff there, and you got that stuff up and down, is like, where else are you going to challenge yourself and grow and continue to move up the ladder within marketing operations and potentially outside of that? So I think from there, it's great to have an option to do something like that, to get involved into the budget and budget management on that per se there. And then on your second question, would I do things differently if I didn't have like budget management? I think maybe that's a little bit hard for me to say, just because I do have the ability to see into it. But I think overall, I still think I would probably, apply some stringent kind of rigor around that stuff there, right? Just knowing myself personally of like how, like, conservative, like, not make sure that we're investing the dollars wisely, right? Are we really going to get this stuff out of it, and those things there. Maybe a decision here or there where I would have, moved forward with, and not knowing like the full marketing budget on those things there. I'm like, oh yeah, to me it makes sense. Let's go do this, right? Probably where I would make maybe decisions more liberally would be around like headcount, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that, right? But now that if you understand what your budget's at, what your targets are at, how finance and how the board is thinking of the finances, then you tend to put a different lens on it.
Yeah, but I think your point about how it might affect your thought process about headcount is probably the biggest one for me that would have been different, right? If I had, because I, having been in scenarios where both I managed just the MarTech budget or marketing ops budget, and one where I helped with the whole marketing budget, I think I became much more aware of and needed to understand better, like, where are the gaps in skills and knowledge and experience that we had across all of marketing, as opposed to just, quote, just on my team. And I think so, I tried to be as sort of honest as I could with myself about, like, okay, where's the real need across the organization? If we had, where to spend that one more dollar on, if we go to headcount, right, then this is the place where we really need it. And I'd like to think that in cases where that's been the case, I've sort of, where I thought was right, I was like, as much as I think I need this kind of resource on my team, this other one, we really need this more first. It's not that there wasn't a need here, but the other one was a higher need and would provide more return, even if it was hard to quantify.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of like technology spend on campaigns, so like I don't know that I would have done anything differently, other than big picture stuff, right? Just general approach to go to market I might be arguing about, but that wasn't about specific tactical things. All right, so gosh, we're like going to run out of time here for all this stuff. I was like, but it's been great. Like
Mike Rizzo.
my head is full of like all these new things. But so the one thing that I think we didn't really spend a lot of time on here yet is and maybe try to think back to before and after you sort of had this revelation about the importance of finance knowledge. Yeah, how has it affected what you do in terms of reporting and analytics, whether it's for marketing overall or for your, what your team? We kind of covered what you do for your team, but really for marketing overall, like how's it changed how you thought about what are the important things to report?
Yeah, that's it's a good question, right? So there's a couple of different. To me, there's just straightforward, like, how close how good are we at managing a budget, right? To your point earlier, marketers generally are not the best budget managers, right? They like to do things, they like to be creative, they're thinking about value propositions, words on a page and stuff like that.
It's going to be so beautiful.
And for some of them, you tell them PO, manage a budget, is like, nah, no thanks, don't want nothing to do with that. Right. But when you have a large budget, right, and you want to, be a good corporate citizen, for the organization and for the business, and, to Mike's point, every startup right now is trying to make a profit, and you make a profit by managing your expenses on this stuff here, right? So part of that is the initial view that we look at it is how well are we managing a budget, right? That we said we're going to spend, $100, and how close did we get to that? And so I measure variance to that, right? I say, and this is we do it. Every organization is different. At Intuit, we did it at the quarterly basis. And here at SolarWinds, I do it on a monthly basis where, we're tracking, forecast, POs, bills, accruals. If the stuff sounds foreign to you, then that's probably
that's why you need to know finance, because those are the numbers that they care about.
Yeah. And then, maybe that's just your next opportunity, right? As somebody's self-development on that stuff there. But so, yeah, we measure variance, right? And we have a very tight, small window for our variance, right? And so everyone sets their own variance, industry, sometimes some finance or startups may say, hey, 10% variance is okay. Under is better than over, right? Underspent versus overspent in general on that stuff there.
But it's not the same everywhere.
Yeah. No, it's not.
I literally like 2 years ago, I had a conversation at the end of the year with a finance team. I was like, I've got this project going on, and I can either come in on my budget or I can come in 20 grand over. Which would you rather have me do? And they said, go over.
Yep.
I said, done.
Yep.
Yeah. So funny.
Yeah, there's situations like that where, just depending what the profit loss statement is looking like, or they're trying to meet a certain number to manage to. I think there's, board conversations and complexities around that stuff of, especially if you're a publicly traded company and those type of things. They're, you've communicated something, and now how close are you going to get to that, right? Because that gets a lot of scrutiny. I think I'm not that type of expert, but I suspect that they get a lot of scrutiny of like, hey, you said X, like you better get pretty darn close to it.
Yeah, I mean, there was at the startups I've been at, there was always there's the internal number, there's the board number, and then there's the actual like executive expected number, right? And one of those gets communicated to sales and marketing, but not the others.
Right.
And you have to reach a certain like threshold in the organization of trust to know that there's secret numbers.
Yeah,
right.
They are layered, and they're done for reasons, and it's proven that it's a process that works, right? Of like get people, I forget what it's called, but either way, right? Like aim big and miss small type thing. It's opposite of the other thing. But yeah, something like that, right? So you actually hit your number on those things, or you give them a higher target. Yeah, so I think that's the first thing that I measure, right? Like how good are we at doing that stuff there? And then outside of that is through like monthly business reviews or QBRs. Again, like how is the marketing department performing, being a marketing department, kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? We're broken down by product categories and regions. So like how well are we performing, delivering, leads, and MQLs is what we call them. I think they're maybe similar in other organizations. But sales qualified leads, right?
What about, are you doing also like, we said we were going to do these campaigns or these projects or these change things, and did we meet those?
Yeah, from a kind of like a strategic initiatives, we do a bit of that. Maybe not as formalized. I mean, there's different levels of rigor. We do like a monthly check-ins on that, and then since I do on some of the program management for marketing, we do kind of a monthly review of like, hey, how much progress did we make in this project? How much progress did we make in this project? That's not necessarily, like financially driven or something like that, but
no,
but from a programmatic level, yes,
I like the idea. There's like, there's business reviews, right, monthly, quarterly. I think it's something. Naomi, who's not here today, I know she was the first one I heard talk about doing that from her marketing ops teams, and using it as a way to talk about what they've accomplished.
Yeah, and the other way that it's still a little bit new, and here at SolarWinds, we're still building the muscle. Everyone knows it, like OKRs, right? Like being specific, signing up for something before the year. It's usually something around like pipe or increasing conversion rate or something like that. And then those do get tracked at the quarterly level for us to say, hey, where are we at on this stuff here versus what we said we're at? And then we measure that variance as well, right? And grade ourselves on those things. It's still, we're past maybe the crawl phase and we're in the walk phase now. We're definitely, I wouldn't say we're running, but we're getting better.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I would love to continue on, and we were just getting into the fun stuff for me, like you were talking about my kind of language, right? Budgets and accruals, and all that kind of But this has been like who knew we could get into a conversation about finance and marketing ops for almost an hour and still have more to do, like not cover everything.
Never ends. Yeah, it never ends. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I'd say, and for our listeners, Jaime's talking a little bit about some basics around statistics too. So if you want, go check out the statistics course that Kamala Thompson has taught. It's on our website. That could also be a nice foundational element to helping you step in the direction of analytics, understanding variance, and that kind of stuff. And then I have a to-do now. I need to go find somebody who can teach a little bit more about finance on our website.
Maybe we have someone here, Mike. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll put you in contact with somebody really good.
Okay, I'm in. Let's do it.
Jaime, this has been great. If folks want to kind of follow up with you or kind of see what you're up to, I don't know if you're active on social media or not, but what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn's probably the most easiest way. Feel free to, as long as you're not trying to sell me something, most of the times I'll accept your invite. If you're trying to sell me something, just follow me. But nah, in all seriousness, yeah, probably LinkedIn is the easiest way. Message me, connect with me. Happy to, grow the network and add what I can to marketing operations.
Fantastic. Well, Jaime, again, thank you so much. Mike, thanks for joining, and we'll get Naomi back here soon. And thank you to all our listeners out there for continuing to support us. And thanks for all our guests. Like, we've had some tremendous guests, and for those who have been waiting for a callback, it's all on me. So look for something from me here, hopefully soon. Until next time, bye everyone.
Bye everybody.
Bye.